The moment the social welfare assistance supplement notice went out, its impact spread faster than any short video ever could. Because this was not an anonymous forum. It was not a White Tower course group. It was not some correction text message from an unknown source. It carried the name of the city government's social welfare assistance system. For many people, that meant it was official. It meant they had no choice but to take it seriously. Worse, the recipients were not ordinary players. They were people already applying for medical subsidies, living assistance, psychological support referrals, or family aid. They were more afraid than most people of having their eligibility interrupted. More afraid of missing a deadline. More afraid of failing to submit a required supplement. Xinhuan's monitoring screen quickly filled with red. Parent groups. Patient groups. Social welfare mutual aid groups. Divine domain anxiety support groups. All of them began forwarding the same notice. Is this real? I never synchronized with Divine Domain. Why did I receive it too? What is stability confirmation data? If I do not supplement it, will my aid be stopped? Does this mean I have to go to White Tower for an assessment? Is the city government building a roster? Panic was spreading. Tang Jingheng immediately ordered the Social Affairs Bureau to retract the notice. But the information unit reported back. The notice came from scheduled dispatches in the local social welfare systems of 3 districts. It was not sent directly from the city government's main system. Retracting it requires synchronized action from each district. Chen Shu said coldly, then synchronize it. The information unit answered, we are contacting them now. When Lin Yao heard the words contacting them now, his heart sank. The greatest weakness of government systems had appeared. It was not that the government lacked authority. It had too many layers. The city government, the district offices, outsourced systems, social worker terminals, text message platforms, customer service vendors. Every layer had to be contacted. Luo Wentz only needed the notice to go out once. The government had to take it back layer by layer. Xinhuan asked, can we issue a correction announcement first? Tang Jingheng nodded. Yes. A Social Affairs Bureau representative immediately drafted the announcement. The first version was very official. Regarding the matter in which some citizens received a stability confirmation supplement notice, this bureau is currently investigating. Citizens are requested not to operate it for the time being. Lin Yao read it and immediately shook his head. Not enough. The Social Affairs Bureau representative frowned. What is not enough? It does not dismantle the fear, Lin Yao said. What citizens fear most is that being overdue will affect their eligibility. The announcement must say in the first sentence that failure to fill out this notice will not stop their subsidies or assistance. Tang Jingheng nodded at once. Change it. The second version came out quickly. Official city government statement. The Stability Confirmation Supplement Notice received by some citizens today is not an officially approved supplement request from the city government. Failure to fill out this notice will not stop, cancel, or reduce any existing eligibility for social welfare, medical, psychological support, or other assistance. Please do not click any links inside the notice. Please do not go to any assessment location that has not been announced by the city government. The city government has begun an investigation. If supplements are required later, the original handling window will notify citizens through official channels. If you have already filled it out, please keep a screenshot. There is no need to panic. The city government will provide withdrawal and correction channels. Lin Yao nodded. It can be released. After the announcement went out, the panic eased slightly. But the problem was not over. Because many people had already filled it out. The back end of the social welfare system showed that in just 20 minutes, more than 1,300 people had opened the notice. More than 400 of them had completed the stability confirmation data. The Social Affairs Bureau representative's face went pale. More than 400 people. Xinhuan asked, what did they fill in? The data governance representative opened a sample. The form included whether the person had ever come into contact with divine domain era, whether they had dream anxiety, whether they had received a correction notice, whether they had ever refused correction or a stability process, whether they were willing to accept stability confirmation, whether they agreed to provide their data to third-party psychological support and eligibility assessment. The final item was checked by default. I agree, in order to maintain assistance eligibility, to accept necessary stability confirmation and data comparison. This was a government version of supplemental consent, larger than the hospital's version. Because this was not one group of family members. This was citizens. Lin Yao said, establish a withdrawal window. Tang Jingheng asked, at the city level? Yes. The announcement already says withdrawal and correction channels will be provided. Now it has to be done immediately. The data governance representative nodded. We can open a temporary page. Lin Yao immediately warned them, do not make another new form that collects even more sensitive data. Only let citizens enter the notice number or the last 3 digits of their phone number to withdraw the stability confirmation they just submitted. Do not ask them to fill in dreams, correction, temporary names, or withdrawal details again. This point mattered. Many remedial forms accidentally became a second round of data collection. The city government's withdrawal window had to do only one thing, withdraw the mistaken consent. It could not expand the data. Xinhuan helped organize the wording of the withdrawal page. Withdraw today's erroneous stability confirmation. Withdrawal will not affect existing assistance eligibility. This withdrawal applies only to the consent inside today's mistakenly sent notice involving stability confirmation, third-party psychological support, and eligibility assessment data comparison. Normal social welfare and medical assistance applications will not be affected. If the notice has caused you anxiety, please stop operating for now and contact your original handling window or the city temporary assistance line. Tang Jingheng finished reading and directly ordered the information team to publish it. But Luo Wentz did not let them end things smoothly. Less than 5 minutes after the withdrawal page went online, another wave of rumors appeared across social media. Withdrawing will be recorded as unstable. After withdrawing, your welfare eligibility will enter a manual review blacklist. Do not withdraw. Withdrawing means you admit you have a divine domain problem. The city government is collecting a list of people who withdraw. Xinhuan's expression turned iron blue when she saw it. He is counterattacking the withdrawal window. Lin Yao was not surprised. Once a withdrawal existed, Luo Wentz would attack it. Because withdrawal was what every correction process feared most. Tang Jingheng asked, how do we respond? Lin Yao said, do not scold the rumors. Just state directly that the withdrawal window does not collect divine domain details and only withdraws mistaken consent. The announcement was quickly supplemented. The withdrawal window does not require divine domain experiences, dreams, temporary names, correction, or medical details. Withdrawal records may not be used as deductions to assistance eligibility, blacklists, or risk tags. Withdrawal only means that you do not agree to the third-party stability confirmation and data comparison contained in today's mistakenly sent notice. That sentence effectively suppressed part of the panic. But the real question was where the 400 completed forms had gone. The data governance representative traced the data flow. The results showed that the social welfare supplement systems of 3 districts had synchronized the data to the same external node. The node name was GOV StableTemp. Government Stability Temporary Node. Tang Jingheng's face became extremely ugly. The city government does not have this node. He Chuan checked the technical fingerprint. It shares the same source as GovStable Advisor from the meeting plugin just now. Lin Yao looked at Qin Wan. Qin Wan understood immediately. Luo Wentz did not only submit a policy plan. He has already built a temporary government stability node. This node was not necessarily truly inside the government's core system, but it disguised itself as a government stability data receiving point and took away the sensitive data of more than 400 people. And the data content included refusal of correction, willingness to accept stability confirmation, and anxiety about assistance eligibility. All of those could be used to build a new list for correction pressure. Chen Shu asked, "Can it be cut off?" The information team said, "We are blocking the synchronization." The data governance representative added, "But the data that has already been sent out needs to be tracked." Lin Yao immediately said, "Establish protection for the leaked supplement list. It is not a risk roster." Tang Jingheng asked, "What is the difference?" A risk roster marks that a person has a problem. A protection list marks that a person's data was mistakenly sent out. Its purpose is not to monitor them. It is to prevent them from being corrected, threatened, having their eligibility deducted, or being contacted again because of mistaken data. The data governance representative nodded. The name matters. The Social Affairs Bureau representative also said, "If it is called a risk roster, citizens will panic. Call it the Mis-Sent Supplement Protection Register." Lin Yao nodded. That works. The Mis-Sent Supplement Protection Register was established. It had very few fields. Notice number. Whether it had been withdrawn. Whether eligibility deductions needed to be prevented. Whether the original handling window needed to be notified. It did not collect divine domain details. It did not collect dreams. It did not collect temporary names. It did not collect correction content. This was a roster against rosters. Its purpose was to keep the mistaken data from being used to hurt people, not to classify them again. A system prompt surfaced. New government scenario category, Mis-Sent Supplement Protection Register. Effect, converts people corresponding to leaked data from risk tags into protected subjects. New rule, after data leakage, establish protection, not punishment. Lin Yao looked at the prompt, and his heart steadied slightly. But GOV StableTemp still had not been fully located. While Qin Wan traced the external node, she discovered that the receiving end was automatically generating a new list. Its name was City-Level Stability Subjects Requiring Follow-up. The data of more than 400 people was being rapidly sorted. One column read, "Can be guided to offline confirmation." Offline confirmation. Lin Yao's gaze went cold. He wants to lead people to a physical site. Tang Jingheng asked, "Which site?" Qin Wan traced the location field. There was one temporary confirmation point in each of the 3 districts. All of them used names that looked like government cooperative services. One of the locations stood out sharply. Southern District Temporary Counter at the Citizen Service Center. The next battlefield of the government system war had appeared. Luo Wentz was using the mistakenly sent supplement notice to lead real vulnerable aid recipients to a temporary government counter. That place would be even more sensitive than a mall, White Tower, or a hospital. Because it was a government service window. If stability confirmation was completed there, many people would believe it was a formal administrative procedure. Tang Jingheng stood up. Seal the Southern District temporary counter immediately. Chen Shu also rose. We are going to the site. Lin Yao picked up the metal box. The government system war had moved from online supplements into offline counters. Luo Wentz had finally begun dressing the wrong process in the most formal clothing. A public service counter. A numbered ticket. A supplement form. A stamp. And to ordinary people, these things were more oppressive than any divine domain password. The Southern District Citizen Service Center was an old administrative building. The first floor was a joint service hall. On ordinary days, it handled household registration consultations, social welfare supplements, temporary certificates, subsidy applications, elderly cards, and disability-related referrals. There was no soft lighting like White Tower. No smell of disinfectant like a hospital. No glass curtain wall like the Onshu building. It was simply an ordinary government window. Plastic chairs. A number machine. A bulletin board. A service bell. People waiting. This kind of place was the most capable of making people automatically obey a process. Take a number. Q. Supplement documents. Sign. Stamp. If someone sitting behind a counter said, "Please confirm here," most people would do it. Because this was not a strange link. Not an eerie classroom. Not basement level 2. This was the government. When Lin Yao arrived, there were already many citizens outside the service center. Most of them had rushed over after receiving the supplement notice. There were elderly people. Parents. Family members of patients. Young people. Someone held up a phone and anxiously asked the counter staff, "I received this. It says I have to supplement stability data within 24 hours. If I do not supplement it, will my subsidy be stopped?" The real staff of the Southern District Service Center were also confused. Because they themselves did not know where this temporary counter had come from. In the corner of the hall, there were 3 temporary desks. On each desk stood a white sign with blue characters. Divine Domain Synchronization Stability Confirmation Temporary Service. Assistance with supplements to avoid eligibility interruption. Beneath the signs was the city government emblem. But Tang Jingheng confirmed remotely that the emblem had been stolen. It was not officially approved. 3 workers in blue vests were helping citizens fill out forms. One of them spoke with great fluency. "Do not worry. This is only stability confirmation. After you fill it out, your subsidy eligibility will not be affected. If you have any withdrawal or instability records, it is recommended that you supplement them together." An elderly woman asked shakily, "I do not understand Divine Domain. My grandson plays it. Do I have to fill this out too?" The worker smiled. "If the system notified you, it means your family data may be related. It is safer to fill it out first." Lin Yao's eyes turned cold. Family data relation. Kinship implication had appeared again. Chen Shu directly led the field officers forward. "Stop the operation." The workers froze. "Who are you?" Through the live connection, Tang Jingheng had the service center broadcast an official statement. Official city government notice: this center has not established a Divine Domain Synchronization Stability Confirmation temporary service. The relevant counters on site are not approved by the city government. Citizens do not need to fill anything out. Failure to fill out these forms will not affect existing subsidy, medical, social welfare, or other assistance eligibility. Those who have already filled them out should not panic. The site will provide withdrawal and data protection assistance. As soon as the broadcast sounded, the hall stirred. Some people breathed out in relief. Some became angry. Some panicked and asked what would happen to the data they had just filled in. The 3 blue-vested workers tried to pack up their documents and leave, but the field officers stopped them. One of them immediately said, "We are only outsourced service staff. We accepted a temporary dispatch job." Chen Shu said coldly, "Show us the dispatch order." The worker took out a phone. On the dispatch platform, the task name read, "Citizen Stability Data Supplement Assistance." The task description said, "Assist citizens in completing stability confirmation forms. Do not promise citizens any subsidy outcome. Do not discuss divine domain correction details. If citizens ask whether it is necessary, answer, it is recommended that you complete it to avoid later eligibility delays." Lin Yao looked at the final sentence. This was the knife of administrative language. It did not say their aid would definitely be stopped. It only said, to avoid delays. That was enough to make people afraid. Xinhuan immediately checked the dispatch source. It was another new shell company. But the payment account intersected with flows from prepaid cards once used by the Anshu system. Tang Jinghong's face was dark. They dared to impersonate a city government counter. Lin Yao said, "It is not only impersonation. He is using the government service scenario. He is making citizens believe this is a formal administrative procedure." The service center director rushed to the site, sweating heavily. "We truly did not know how this temporary counter got in." After checking the surveillance footage, the field officers discovered that the 3 workers had entered under the name of City Government Digital Supplement Support. The security guard on duty had seen the dispatch order and the city government emblem, so he let them in. There had been no malice. Only a process loophole. Lin Yao looked at the frightened citizens in the hall. The true oppressive force of the government system node was showing itself here. It did not need black tide. It only needed one table, one emblem, and one sentence: avoid eligibility delays. That was enough to make many people hand over their data. He immediately requested that a real withdrawal window be established on site. But this time was different from online. Many elderly people did not know how to use web pages. Many people did not understand data withdrawal. So the window had to use the plainest possible language. Lin Yao wrote on a whiteboard. "If you just filled out the wrong form, you can cancel it here. Canceling will not stop your subsidy. Canceling does not mean you are admitting that you have a problem. It only means that the wrong form cannot be used again." The service center director looked at it and hesitated. "Is this too colloquial?" Lin Yao said, "The people here need to understand it." Tang Jinghong agreed remotely. "Write it this way." The withdrawal window quickly began operating. An elderly woman was the first to come over. "I just wrote my grandson's name. Will it harm him?" Xinhuan crouched down and spoke very slowly. "No. We are going to cancel the wrong form you just filled out. After it is cancelled, his eligibility will not be deducted because you filled it out." The elderly woman's eyes reddened. "I was only afraid his subsidy would be gone." "I know. That is why this is not your fault." That sentence almost became the core of every withdrawal window today. This is not your fault. You were only afraid the eligibility would be gone. The fault belongs to the person who used that fear. More and more people lined up to withdraw. The service center staff were also trained quickly. They learned 3 sentences. First, failure to fill it out will not affect eligibility. Second, if you already filled it out, it can be cancelled. Third, cancelling will not be recorded as unstable. Those 3 sentences were like a government scenario version of the safe name question. Simple. Clear. Not mysterious. Not stimulating. A system prompt surfaced. New government scenario, offline withdrawal window. Effect, dismantles eligibility pressure created by false administrative procedures. New rule: erroneous administrative consent may be withdrawn, and withdrawal may not be punished. Just as the site gradually stabilized, Songju suddenly looked toward the other side of the hall. His face went faintly pale. There is another line. Lin Yao followed his gaze. In the farthest corner of the hall stood a self-service machine. It was usually used to print application status, supplement lists, and temporary certificates. At this moment, a young woman was standing in front of it. She was not queuing for withdrawal. She was entering information into the machine. The screen displayed: Stability confirmation completed. Please print temporary stability certificate. Lin Yao's gaze sank. The fake counter was only the surface. The real node was hidden inside the government's self-service machine. The self-service machine was connected to the service center's internal printing and inquiry system. If it could print a temporary stability certificate, then it had disguised the correction process as an administrative certificate. Chen Shu immediately rushed over to stop the printing. But the machine had already spat out a sheet of paper. The young woman picked it up, looking lost. The paper carried the city government emblem. Its title was Temporary Stability Certificate. Below it was written: The holder has completed Divine Domain Synchronization Stability Confirmation and may be referenced for follow-up assistance, medical referral, and educational support. If this sheet spread out, the consequences would be terrifying. Because once some people had a stability certificate, others would be required to get one too. People without a certificate might be treated as unstable. The government system version of White Tower's tower core was no longer a person. It was a certificate. Lin Yao looked at the paper, his voice turning cold. The stability certificate cannot be allowed to exist. Tang Jinghang's remote expression was iron blue. The city government never approved any such certificate. But the back end of the self-service machines already showed that in just over 10 minutes, 27 temporary stability certificates had been printed across 3 districts. The true government node Luo once wanted had surfaced. It was not a roster. Not a supplement. It was proof. Once society began demanding a stability certificate, everyone without one would be pushed toward correction. The government system war had entered the lock of proof. When the temporary stability certificate was placed into a transparent evidence bag, the paper still carried the warmth of fresh printing. It looked too official. The city government emblem. A barcode. A serial number. A printing time. It even had an anti-counterfeit line. Can be verified through the citizen service system. If Tang Jinghang had not personally confirmed that the city government had never approved it, many people on site would have believed it was real. What was even more frightening was that this kind of certificate did not need Luowens to promote it on a large scale. As long as someone obtained it, it would naturally spread. Parents would ask, why does someone else have one and you do not? Schools would ask, can you provide a stability certificate? Hospitals would ask, has the follow-up referral completed stability confirmation? Social welfare windows would ask, can the system find the certificate? Companies, insurance providers, tutoring centers, psychological centers, and game customer service desks might all begin treating it as a safety document. This was the lock of proof. It did not force you to correct. It simply made life inconvenient if you did not have proof. Lin Yao looked at the sheet of paper and thought of White Tower's tower core. White Tower wanted to use a living person as a stability scale. The government node went one step further. It wanted to use a certificate to replace the living tower core. A certificate was more convenient than a person. A person could cry, could withdraw, could become unstable, could refuse to share. But a certificate could not. A certificate could only be copied, verified, requested, and filed. Chen Shu asked Tang Jingheng, "Can the entire city revoke it?" Tang Jingheng immediately ordered the information team to revoke the temporary stability certificate verification function. But the information team soon reported back. The verification interface is not in the main system. It is a temporary verification page generated by the self-service machine plugin. The page is still externally accessible. Tang Jingheng took a deep breath. Block the domain. Blocking now. The data governance representative added, even if the verification page is blocked, the printed paper still exists. And citizens may already have taken photos and uploaded them. Qinwan monitored social media. Sure enough, photos of the stability certificates had already begun to circulate. People were saying, "Will this be required for future subsidy applications? I just printed one at the Southern District Service Center. Does having this mean I am safe? If I do not have one, will I be listed as high risk?" Worse, some accounts began guiding people. Everyone should hurry up and print one while there is no line yet. Stability certificates may become required documents for future divine domain-related services. If you do not want your eligibility stopped, get one first. Rumors and certificates reinforced each other. Even if the city government said the certificate was invalid, citizens might still fear that one day it would be needed. Lin Yao knew that merely saying the certificate was invalid was not enough. Because what people feared most was being asked for it in the future. He said to Tang Jingheng, "The announcement has to state clearly that no unit may require citizens to provide a stability certificate." Tang Jingheng immediately had the announcement revised. Official city government statement. This city has not issued any divine domain synchronization stability certificate or similar document. Any related document printed through self-service machines today is an unapproved erroneous document with no legal or administrative effect. No city government agency, school, medical cooperation unit, social welfare window, or outsourced vendor may require citizens to provide this certificate. A citizen's lack of this certificate may not be used as a reason to refuse service, delay subsidies, lower eligibility, or increase review burden. Those who have already obtained this document do not need to destroy it. It may be kept as evidence of an erroneous document. The city government will provide cancellation registration. After reading it, Lin Yao added one more sentence. Add this, holding it does not mean someone is safer. Tang Jingheng paused slightly, then nodded. The announcement gained an additional line. Holding this erroneous document does not mean that formal safety assessment has been completed or that any priority eligibility exists. That sentence was crucial. Not holding it could not be punished. Holding it also could not give extra points. Otherwise, the stability certificate would still become an invisible advantage. After the government announcement went out, the spread of the stability certificate cooled slightly. But some people still did not believe it. Someone commented, "They say it is invalid now, then later they will say we need to supplement it." The government itself is a mess. It is better to print one first. Having it is better than not having it. This was the hardest part of dismantling certificate logic. Once people believed a certificate might be useful, they wanted to obtain it first. Even if the official statement said it was invalid. Lin Yao looked at social media and suddenly understood that people had to know this certificate was not only invalid, but dangerous. But he could not frighten them. He could not say, "If you took one, you are contaminated." That would panic the people who had already obtained it. He thought for a moment and wrote 3 sentences. This certificate is not protection. It may make others mistakenly believe you have agreed to stability confirmation. Those who received it can cancel it. Those who did not receive it do not need to supplement it. Xinhuan read it and said, "This can spread." The service center also posted it immediately. In the hall, some people who had been about to go to the self-service machine stopped. The young woman who had just received a certificate stood where she was, her hand still trembling. She asked, "So did I just agree to something?" Lin Yao walked up to her. "There may have been erroneous consent, but it can be cancelled." The young woman burst into tears. "I just wanted to keep my mother's subsidy." "I know," Lin Yao said. "This is not your fault. But now we need to remove this certificate from the system." The young woman nodded. A cancellation window was quickly established. This time it was not withdrawal of a supplement. It was cancellation of an erroneous certificate. The whiteboard read, "Stability Certificate Cancellation. Cancellation will not affect subsidies. Cancellation does not mean you are unstable. After cancellation, no unit may require you to apply again." Xinhuan looked at those sentences and said softly, "We are dismantling wrong documents over and over." Lin Yao said, "Because Luo Wen's documents look more like reality than passwords. In reality, documents were power. Notices, supplements, consent forms, certificates, rosters, scores. Every kind of document could become a new carrier for military orders." A system prompt surfaced. New government scenario category, lock of proof. Definition: using proof documents, verification pages, administrative emblems, or eligibility certificates to force individuals into correction, stability confirmation, or social exclusion. Handling method: declare invalidity, prohibit requirement, no advantage for holding it, no penalty for not holding it, and provide cancellation. New rule: proof may not create an obedience advantage. Lin Yao looked at the final sentence. Proof may not create an obedience advantage. That sentence mattered too much. If people who completed correction, stability confirmation, or White Tower processes could gain document advantages, then everyone else would be forced to follow, even if there was no explicit compulsion. This was the most common pressure in modern systems. It was not that you had to do it. It was that doing it made things easier. Not doing it made things slower, more troublesome, reviewed longer, questioned more. That difference was obedience advantage. Luo Wen's was turning correction into obedience advantage. Obsidian had to dismantle it. While the stability certificate cancellation was operating, the self-service machine suddenly lit up again. It was not printing. It showed a countdown. Temporary stability certificate batch synchronization, 5 o'clock. Tang Jinghang immediately asked the information team remotely, "Synchronizing to where?" The information team answered, "Checking now." The countdown continued. 4:42. Xinhuan accessed the self-service machine backend. It is going to synchronize the 27 generated certificates into 3 systems. Social welfare assistance, educational support, medical referral. Everyone's face sank. If the synchronization succeeded, even if the government announced the certificate invalid, a trace would remain in the back end. At some future window, someone might see that one person had a certificate while another did not. The obedience advantage would revive in the back end. Tang Jinghang said, "Cut the synchronization." The information team tried to cut it off. But the self-service machine displayed. Synchronization initiated by local administrative device offline signature. On-site supervisor card required for revocation. The service center director's face went white. "The supervisor card is with me." He immediately swiped the card. The system prompt appeared. Revocation requires secondary confirmation. "Who is secondary confirmation?" asked Chen Shu. The service center director checked for a long time. His face became even paler. "The acting director of the district social welfare section. They are not on site." 3 minutes remained. This was another kind of lock inside administrative systems. The authority lock. Reasonable. Designed to prevent one person from abusing power. But in an emergency, it became a protective shell around the wrong process. Lin Yao asked Tang Jinghong, "Can the city government conduct remote secondary confirmation?" Tang Jinghong said, "According to regulations, local equipment using local signatures requires on-site or authorized proxy confirmation. Remote administrative revocation could be abused." This was not a bad system. But Luo Wentz was using the normal protection of the system. Lin Yao looked at the self-service machine. They could not smash it. They could not cut power. Once power was cut, it might leave an unfinished synchronization and an erroneous state that would be harder to handle later. It had to be revoked by administrative means. He asked the service center director, "Is there an emergency proxy seal?" The director froze. "There is a disaster response proxy. But this is not a disaster." Chen Shu said coldly, "This is a security incident." Tang Jinghong immediately said, "In my capacity as director of the city government's digital governance office, I confirm that this incident is a cross-system data security incident. Activate the local administrative device emergency revocation proxy." The service center director clenched his teeth and took out the sealed emergency proxy card. He swiped it. The system paused. "Please enter revocation reason." Lin Yao said, "Erroneous certificate. Do not synchronize." The director typed it in. "Erroneous certificate. Do not synchronize. Confirm." The countdown stopped at 47 seconds. Batch synchronization revoked. Everyone in the hall let out a breath. A system prompt surfaced. New government scenario, administrative revocation proxy. Restriction, limited to revocation before erroneous document synchronization. Requires on-site responsible person and superior responsibility confirmation. Effect, prevents erroneous certificates from entering multiple system backends. Lin Yao looked at the prompt and knew that another reality rule had been added. Obsidian was not making decisions for the government. The government itself had to activate legitimate revocation. Obsidian only pointed out the error. Responsibility still had to be carried by the real responsible people. That boundary had to be capped. Otherwise, Obsidian would also become another overreaching system. However, before everyone could truly rest, Songji suddenly looked toward the second floor of the service center. "There are names up there." Lin Yao asked, "What names?" Songji's face was pale. "Many names. Not stability certificates. Household registration." Lin Yao's heart sank. The next layer of the government system war was deeper than social welfare and certificates. Household registration. The root of identity. If Luo Wentz had touched household registration data, this was no longer a lock of eligibility. It was a lock of identity. The second floor of the Citizen Service Center was the household registration and identity document consultation area. During the day, it was always full of people. Some came to replace identity cards. Some came to transfer household registration. Some came to change names. Some registered births. Some processed death deregistration. These matters looked trivial. But they formed the root of how a person was recognized in reality. Name. Birth. Death. Kinship. Address. Documents. Household registration. If the lock of eligibility used welfare and assistance to force people toward correction, and the lock of proof used documents to create obedience advantage, then the lock of identity directly touched the state of a person's existence. When Lin Yao walked up to the second floor, he was already extremely alert. It was quieter here than the first floor. Most counters had suspended service. But one household registration inquiry terminal was still lit. Beside the terminal stood a household registration officer on duty, his face deathly pale. As soon as he saw the service center director come up, he said, "Director, I was only checking death to registration data. But the system produced some strange statuses." The service center director hurriedly asked, "What statuses?" The officer turned the screen around. It was not the formal household registration page. It was an added inquiry window. The title read, "Synchronized Identity Stability Auxiliary Mark." Below it were several fields. Name stability, yes or no. Death status, confirmed or pending correction. Kinship relation, inheritable or not inheritable. Temporary name record, exists. Identity correction suggestion, assessment required. When Lin Yao saw the words temporary name record, his eyes went completely cold. The household registration system should not have temporary name records. Temporary names belong to safety points, safe name processes, and low stimulation naming needs inside psychological support. They could not enter household registration. Once temporary names entered household registration auxiliary marks, they might be seen as name instability. They could even affect name changes, documents, kinship relations, and death registration. This was the first cut of the lock of identity. Tang Jingheng connected remotely. His face was very ugly. A household registration main system cannot have this field. The household registration officer said shakily, "It is not the main system. It was an auxiliary inquiry window that popped up just now." The data governance representative immediately checked it. The source showed that it was an extension module of the Citizen Service Center self-service supplement plugin. In other words, the same plugin that created the stability certificate had tried to attach identity stability marks to household registration inquiries on the second floor. Luo Wentz had not truly altered household registration. But he had tried to add a layer of synchronized identity stability auxiliary marks beside household registration. This was more hidden than direct tampering. Because counter staff might think it was only a reference. Once a reference was used for long enough, it would affect judgment. For example, a temporary name record exists, so name stability is no. A death status is pending correction, so death to registration should be delayed. A kinship relation is inheritable, so eligibility weights can be applied. An identity correction suggestion says assessment required, so document replacement needs more materials. Identity had not been formally changed. But service slowed. Review increased. Suspicion deepened. This was the lock of identity. Lin Yao immediately said, "This auxiliary window must stop." The household registration officer hurriedly clicked close. But the window displayed a prompt. Closing auxiliary marks may reduce identity safety recognition ability. Continue? The service center director looked at Tang Jingheng. Tang Jingheng gritted his teeth. "Close it." The window closed. But very quickly, it popped up again. City-level synchronized risk coordination suggestion, identity stability data should be retained. Qinwan said coldly, "It is impersonating the decision from the meeting just now." Lin Yao looked at that line, and his heart sank. Luo Wentz was using the meeting itself. The cross-department coordination meeting had just discussed a city-level response, and now it packaged coordination suggestion as the basis for household registration auxiliary marks. If they did not clarify immediately, any wrong plugin in the future could claim to be a coordination suggestion. Tang Jingheng immediately issued an official instruction. This cross-department coordination meeting has not authorized any unit to add divine domain synchronization stability marks into household registration, identity, name, death, or kinship relationship systems. Any temporary name, withdrawal, correction, or stability index may not enter household registration identity auxiliary judgment. Lin Yao added, add one sentence. Temporary names may not be interpreted as name instability. Tang Jingheng nodded. The official instruction was updated. A temporary name is a temporary safety naming need and may not be interpreted as name instability or identity abnormality. That sentence was extremely important. Because people like Little Fog, Little Boat, Blank, and No Substitute all needed to be protected. They could use temporary names at the safe name layer. But the household registration layer could not suspect their identity because of it. The identity system handled legal names and identity verification. The safe name process handled names a person could bear in the moment. The two layers had to remain separate. A system prompt surfaced. New government scenario rule: temporary names may not enter household registration judgment. Identity layer and safe name layer separated. Effect: prevents temporary name users from being marked as name unstable. But the problem was not over. The household registration officer pointed to another record. What is death status pending correction? It was the data of a deceased person. The formal household registration showed death deregistration had been completed. But the auxiliary window marked death status pending correction may be retained for stability sample purposes. Everyone instantly thought of the dead person whitelist. In Anshu's whitelist, death did not affect eligibility. Now, the Identity Auxiliary plugin was even trying to make death status require correction. This was another misuse of the position of the dead. Lin Yao's face darkened. Death is not a pending correction state. Lu Qingsun also said remotely, death registration has legal and medical procedures. It cannot be connected to divine domain correction language. Tang Jingheng immediately added a second instruction. Death registration, death deregistration, and death certificates may not use divine domain synchronization correction, stability index, or whitelist status as auxiliary judgment. Lin Yao added one more sentence. The dead may not be retained as living stability samples. This sentence had extended from the REST register into the household registration system. REST in reality could not exist only inside Anshu. It also had to prevent government identity systems from being contaminated by dead stability samples. Songji looked at the household registration terminal and suddenly whispered, "There is a name flashing." Lin Yao asked, "Which one?" Songji pointed to the bottom of the inquiry records. There was a recently queried entry that had been partially concealed. Query type: name change consultation. Auxiliary marks. Temporary name record exists. Recommended to postpone legal name change. Stability confirmation required. Lin Yao's heart moved. Someone wanted to formally change their name, but the auxiliary plugin had marked that a temporary name record existed and therefore recommended postponement. This was another form of the lock of identity. It did not only prevent temporary names from entering household registration. It could also prevent someone who truly wanted a legal name change from completing it. Because the system would say, "You may not be stable right now. Wait until you complete stability confirmation before changing it." This was again pushing autonomous choice until after the stability process. The administrative version of White Tower's reflection. Lin Yao said, legal name changes cannot be automatically blocked by temporary name records. The household registration officer immediately said, they cannot in the first place. Name changes have their own legal requirements. They should not look at divine domain temporary names. Tang Jingheng added a third instruction. Legal name changes, name corrections, and identity data corrections shall be handled according to existing legal procedures and may not be automatically postponed or required to undergo stability confirmation because of divine domain temporary names, withdrawal, or instability marks. The system prompt surfaced again. Lock of identity being dismantled. 3 identity layer boundaries established. Temporary names may not enter household registration judgment, the dead may not be pending correction, and legal name changes may not be hijacked by stability confirmation. Warning: Identity Auxiliary plugin still has remote control. Remote control. Xinhuan immediately traced the plugin source. The results showed that the household registration auxiliary window did not come from inside the household registration system. It came upward from the first floor self-service machine plugin, through the Citizen Service Center internal network, disguised as a service suggestion module. In other words, the self-service machine was the entrance. The household registration window was only the display layer being popped up. Tang Jingheng ordered the self-service machine plugin completely isolated. But this time, the information team reminded him, if it is isolated directly, it may affect today's cache records for all self-service machines. Lin Yao asked, will it affect formal household registration data? No. Only self-service machine service records. Tang Jingheng gave the order decisively. Isolate it. The self-service machine plugin was finally completely cut off. The household registration auxiliary window disappeared. The second floor returned to its original household registration inquiry page. No stability index. No temporary name records. No death pending correction. Only legal data. The household registration officer exhaled as if waking from a nightmare. Luckily, it did not truly write into the main system. Lin Yao said, not this time. But he knew Luo Wentz had already tested an entrance. The outer plugins of government systems, self-service machines, supplement notices, and inquiry auxiliary windows could all be used to create identity pressure. Next time, if Luo Wentz found a deeper entrance, it might not only be auxiliary marks. It might be true identity abnormality. A system prompt surfaced. Citizen Service Center node terminated. Supplement notices, stability certificates, and identity auxiliary plugins have been dismantled. New government scenario module, administrative withdrawal and identity layering. Warning: Luo Wentz has obtained countermeasure samples from the identity system. Lin Yao looked at the final sentence and tiredly closed his eyes for a moment. Every time he added a rule, Luo Wentz was also learning. But if he did not add the rules, more people would be locked in. This was the cruelest rhythm of the third season. Saving people also exposed the rules. Silence also allowed people to be swallowed. He could only continue.